views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jamison Rabbit, and I am joined again by my son, Logan. Hello, sir.
Hello.
So we are back from vacation after a beautiful on-location shoot last week, back in the confines of the Friendly Studio.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about some movies.
Some movies.
It's summer movie season. We are in full swing now. We have big blockbusters coming out every week, and this week we have some interesting fare to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
You want to get started?
I mean, you started.
I'll start it then. Fine. All right. Just want to make sure you're ready. So I'm going to get us started with what we have on the marquee this week, and it is the newest film from writer-director M Night Shyamalan. It is this film called Old. This is a film about a family who goes on vacation to a beautiful island resort. They're offered a chance to visit a secluded beach by the resort manager, and who wouldn't jump at that? So the parents, Guy and Prissa, played by Gail Garcia Bernal and Vicky Creeps, respectively, and their 6-year-old son, Trent, and their 11-year-old daughter, Maddox, all jump at the chance to visit this beautiful, secret, secluded beach. They are surprisingly joined by another family as they go to this, what was supposed to be secret, secluded beach. A family of a doctor, Dr. Charles, his wife, Crystal, who is a very a selfie-obsessed wife.
She is very narcissistic throughout the entire movie.
Yes, and their young daughter. Once on the beach, they find a man who is sitting there, a man who some of them know as a rapper named Midsize Sedan.
Midsize Sedan.
And he's sitting there, and soon a body washes up on the beach, and the mystery begins to present itself. You've got a body in the first 20 minutes of this film, a dead body, and we've got to figure out how it got here, who did it, what's going on, and how can we fix things. But it's when they try to leave to get help is when things really start to get weird, because what happens when people try to leave?
They get into this weird delusion, like everything starts getting all strange, get weird pressures in their head, and they black out, and somehow they
wake up back on the beach?
They wake up on the beach.
Right. So they're back on the beach, and soon another couple arrives. Patricia and Jaron, a couple that were also at the resort, they show up just as the confusion and accusations are starting to really swirl. And then the real weird stuff starts to happen as these kids who are 6, 11 years old, they soon become teenagers before your eyes. You turn your back, you turn around.
There they are.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
These kids are much older than they were minutes ago. And theories and a little bit of madness start to combine because we need to know, why are they aging? Why can't we leave? What is this place?
What is going on?
What? We see
weird lights in the
see little glints. We see wounds heal as if people are Wolverine. You get cut and the wound instantly heals.
There was one scene that was just so gross because they cut a girl, or they cut across the face, and all of a sudden
it would just heal.
No blood, no blood.
Yeah. We also see babies are born out of nowhere, and it's
because you have to do it 10 times for a baby to happen.
And the madness starts to kind of get worse because now fear is setting in.
Yeah.
And we find that each of these couples are suffering a malady that brought them here for kind of a respite.
Yeah.
Right? They come to this resort for a respite. They're all somebody suffering from something. Mm-hmm. But what does that mean? That's the question. Why?
Right.
What put the pieces together for me? Why is everyone aging? Why are the kids suddenly going from 6 to towards the end of the movie? They're in their late 40s probably. What's going on? How do we get out of this?
How do you leave? It's a strange movie, to say the least. And I mean, expecting it from Shyamalan, I mean, you've seen all of his movies, you know how it goes, but there's just an eeriness about it. But there were a couple problems I have with it. If you want,
yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. Less with the story and more with the actual cinematography. There was a lot of scenes where they just decided, it felt like they're just like, all right, take the camera and run. Like there was one scene where the old guy is just running, and they just had to strap a GoPro here and running like this, and they randomly zoom in on people's faces for no reason.
It's to build tension.
But it was never during a tense part.
They do that rack focus that's supposed to build tension.
But they would just have that during a random conversation. That was before they found the body, before any aging. They would just be having a conversation. All of a sudden, would zoom in on someone's face, and I couldn't stay interested in it for that kept coming back, and I was like, stop.
M. Night to me is an incredibly uneven filmmaker.
Yes.
I think he makes great films, and I think he makes some really bad films, some big misses. And he can be frustrating at times because one of the things that I don't like about M. Night, and this was one of the films that emphasized as well, is you can see on times how in love with himself he is.
Oh, yeah.
And how brilliant he thinks he is. And you kind of have to be a filmmaker that tells original stories. You have to think, I have something that no one else has. But what drives me nuts is like of course, he always shows up in his own films.
Yeah, but...
And oftentimes, he gives himself all the exposition to explain things.
See,
he did that in The Village.
Yep.
He did it in this, and it drives me nuts.
You know, it's different when you've got like a Hitchcock-type
where it's
thing.
just a tiny cameo.
You're
he walked through the screen.
Yeah, or, he's sitting on the couch next to that guy, and there's another thing where you're like a pivotal character. You know, because I'm pretty sure it was in like Unbreakable, where he kind of... He just is one of the thieves or bad guys.
Yep.
Where he's got like 15 seconds maybe, but no, Shyamalan is a big part, and I get that. It's
I think it hamstrings him, but I think he's great at directing actors.
Oh yeah.
I think he's great at coming up with interesting ideas. Mm-hmm. The payoff isn't always worth it to me. But here, I was along for the ride. I felt like this was more like your classic thriller. This movie didn't live and die by a twist, which I appreciate because that's one of, everyone knows, it's an M. Night movie, what's the twist?
Right.
I didn't think it relied on a crazy twist. It was more about building this fear and confusion and the natural human nature that comes along with it, and it felt more like a character study of some of these characters. Okay. Now, there were some of these characters I thought were incredibly one-note and kind of
especially what Crystal.
Crystal is the main one to me. And there's clunky dialogue, as always with M. Night. Oh, yeah. He has a hard time with dialogue.
I'm sorry. I want to get back to Crystal. It felt like every scene she was in, she was looking in a mirror or taking pictures.
And she didn't get much past that.
Exactly. She didn't feel like a real character. She felt like a caricature. She felt like an exaggerated, like, oh, this is what these type of people are supposed to be like. They're supposed to be obsessed with their looks. And, at some point she starts growing, like, because she has, like, makeup eyebrows. She starts growing her natural eyebrows over them. Like, and
because years are going by.
Exactly. And she's like,
crazy.
I don't know.
I don't want to get into, of course, anything in the ending, but what did you end up giving Old?
So despite all of my gripes about it, despite all of everything I've said, I enjoyed bits and pieces of it. And I enjoy it. It was a beautiful looking film, good story. I give it a 3.
Okay.
I felt like there were redeemable parts. Just there were definitely some things that could have been different.
That's fair. I gave it 3.5. I enjoyed it. I put it in the upper half of Shyamalan's films, but nowhere near the top tier. But
it's better than Avatar and The Happening.
I think it's a rewatchable film, which I don't say about some of those. But speaking of rewatchable, the next film we have, sir, what are we talking about?
We're talking about Snake Eyes. Weird that you would say rewatchable, but Snake Eyes is, the newest reboot of the G.I. Joe series. So we've got a Japanese clan called the Arashikage, something like that. It follows the pivotal character Snake Eyes after he loses his father in an attack. When he was young, he decides to devote his life to stopping the man who killed his father.
Yeah, prepare to die.
Right. It felt.
It's a revenge story.
So he's just doing stuff for the Yakuza, and gets offered a job by I don't remember his name. What was
Tommy?
Tommy.
Oh, Kenta offers him a job
Yes.
And says, I will find the man who killed your father if you do this job.
Correct. But he is. Man, I'm sorry. There's just so much to this. I'm looking for the names. No, I'm looking for the names, and they're just only showing
So
their.
he works for Kenta's cousin, Tommy.
Yes. No.
Against each other.
They're showing the characters' names, like Storm Shadow and stuff like that. I'm sorry. But anyways, it just follows him trying to get back this stone that has been locked up in this palace. Or something. This movie is very fuzzy to me compared to all the other G.I. Joe movies.
So it's the Snake Eyes origin story.
Sure.
Right? We watch him go from a child to suddenly being a great fighter, underground fighter. We don't see him train.
No.
And then he becomes, and it's Henry Golding plays Snake Eyes.
Yes, I meant
and so he gets recruited, and suddenly he has the skills to basically fight like 50 Yakuza at once.
Yep.
As he's searching for the man who killed his father, he's brought into this ancient ninja society led by Tommy, and he's taught to train how to become this great ninja and protect the magical stone from Kenta's army. This is what you have to do, and he's kind of working both sides.
Yeah.
He's working for both guys, kind of selfishly working for his own.
Mm-hmm. Well, because on one hand he wants to get the man who killed his father, on the other hand he's got this really nice life here.
He wants to be accepted and find a new family.
Exactly.
We watch him train. We watch him fight. We watch him learn how to open his heart.
You know, there was one part you mentioned this about how he's able to fight off all these Yakuza. You see this several times in the movie where he is fighting off.
He's our world's greatest fighter before being Snake Eyes, really.
Yeah, he's fighting off 50 men with a sword.
Yeah.
All of them have swords.
We don't see how the cut from like 6-year-old to 30-year-old. We don't see him doing anything training. He's just fighting in underground clubs and he's beating everybody.
He's even getting beaten so bad until he pulls a reverse and. Yeah.
Here's some of the things. I think there's some atrocious camera work in this movie.
Oh, yes.
The opening fight scene where he's fighting this guy in this underground thing, there's just like Dutch angles and shaky cam everywhere in this. Hated that. And lots of quick cuts in the action for a movie about martial artists and the greatest ninja of my childhood that wasn't named Bruce Lee, that I wasn't able to see any of the action, and it was quick cut. It felt like somebody who fell in love with like Paul Greengrass's style in the Bourne movies, where it's like, let's not really show the action. And it was infuriating because the backbone of this movie should be great martial arts action.
Yeah.
And it felt like they were trying to hide something. I think that might be because Henry Golding is not a martial artist.
No.
And so they were trying to kind of hide that, but the fight choreography was mediocre.
Yeah.
It obscured too much of what was going on.
It did feel like you couldn't tell what was going on. Anytime someone would get hit, even like lightly, they would just go, you would never see him again.
Yeah.
Or like they would all storm at once and he would like just kind of swing his sword, hit other people's swords, and they go flying. And they stole a premise in the one thing that sat with me since now, or from the movie since now, is that guns are like, they're a lesser weapon compared to the swords.
It is. That's the philosophy, though, with the Yakuza, is you don't use guns.
I get it. It just, I don't know. I heard that in Star Wars, and I was talking about it with my buddy Jake, and we were just like, that felt.
But Star Wars ripped that off from the Forbidden Kingdom.
That's fair. Maybe that's on me.
Yeah, no, that's part of the Japanese philosophy that George Lucas stole Star Wars from.
But then, like, so many, like, Scarlet and the Baroness have guns, and they're just.
Because we add in then Cobra, and Scarlet from G.I. Joe shows up, and it gets ridiculous.
There's so much going on.
And Tommy also has his origin story in here, and you should know who he is. They try and make a big deal about who he is at the end, but if you know anything about G.I. Joe, you know exactly who he is. He's the ninja who always wears white.
Yeah, exactly. It's the thing.
They
keep showing that throughout the movie, and I'm like, all right, when is he gonna say that he's Storm Shadow?
Yeah,
when are we getting this? And he's.
I think that there's some solid performances in here by some of these actors. But I think the story being told and the action built around it is really lacking. I think that they tried to get too cute at the end with this movie. You start teaming up good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
Don't do that. But here's the biggest thing that irritates me about Snake Eyes the movie. Well, two things. First off, we meet him as an adult. He's already called Snake Eyes before he even becomes a ninja. People are just calling him Snake. Like, what? No. What? No.
One thing that really bothered me about that is that at the beginning he rolls the die and gets snake eyes. How does a kid see that from inside the closet when he rolls it onto the floor?
Yeah, and he's like, I'm going to call myself Snake Eyes now.
Yeah.
And I want everyone else to call me Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, because I was a huge fan of Snake Eyes in the G.I. Joe universe as a kid.
Me too.
Loved it. He was my definition. He was the
coolest.
greatest ninja for us in that age.
For sure.
And he was a man who never spoke.
Nope.
He never took his mask off. He never revealed who he was. He was a total mystery, and that's what made him cool. So what made him cool, so what made Boba Fett cool, all those around that time, was he was a man of mystery. And this character, played by Henry Golding, can't keep a mask on for 5 seconds. Even when he's breaking into somewhere where he knows there's cameras, he immediately has to take his mask off. And this dude can't stop talking.
No.
This isn't Snake Eyes. The only thing I liked about his version of Snake Eyes is in the final 12 seconds of the movie when he finally puts on the Snake Eyes outfit. Unlike in the previous G.I. Joe film, there's no molded lips on the helmet like there was in the Ray Park one. But
no, that was a cool outfit.
He looked like Snake Eyes for 11 seconds of the movie.
He puts it on, they do a pan up, and then he gets on the motorcycle, drives off, and you don't see it again.
Yeah,
I was heavily bothered. I was excited for this movie. All right, I love G.I. Joe, watched G.I. Joe as a kid, watched all the movies. I have a bunch of action figures. And I was like hoping for like an Avengers style universe, because they could do that. They could introduce...
Build it up right.
This could have been a fine movie to just introduce Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, and just the idea of Cobra.
Right, just hint at it.
Just hint at it.
You see the Cobra symbol on some of those weapons cases, like, okay, all right.
Okay, it's Cobra.
And then it's like,
but then they're like,
let's kind of just start throwing stuff in.
Yeah, and they're like, all right, here's another character, here's the whole organization, and you're going to kill a bunch of them.
Yeah. I don't think that this is going to launch the Joe universe that they were hoping.
No.
Because I'm not a fan of this. I think the best part of this film, to me, was the closing credits.
Yeah.
I love the style of the closing credits. I was like,
agree.
This is fun. This is cool. This neon and the music. I'm like,
well, they had a
I'm in
couple
on
of
this.
scenes where it was just rainy Tokyo and it got all the neon signs.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that.
I like that aesthetic.
Tommy's sister, who is supposed to be a great ninja warrior herself, who's kind of actually the toughest one between the two of them.
Oh, for sure.
Except for when she has to be tough, then she's super soft.
Yeah.
And I hated that. Like, she's a tough female character, and then when she needs to be tough, you just back off on that. Like, no, I can't do that. But it's time to move on. What did you know?
I want to find out what you gave it first.
What did I give Snake Eyes? Well, that's not how this works, sir.
Oh, okay. Then
the
I'll
show
go
is
first.
organized in a certain fashion. You have to say your score.
You know, after I watched the movie, I gave it a 2.5, but the more I think about it, I think I was just more excited for, yay, G.I. Joe, because I really like G.I. Joe. But no, this is definitely not a 2.5 movie. I will watch it again once we get more, because
We're not getting more. We're not getting more in this universe.
I know.
No, sir.
What can I hope?
You want to know what I gave it? I gave it 2 stars, and I felt generous giving it 2 stars, actually. Yeah.
That's a fair score.
Yeah, it's not great. Don't rush out to see this. The next movie we have on the marquee, though, is the newest film from Mark Wahlberg. It is a film called Joe Bell. Mark Wahlberg stars as the titular character, Joe Bell. This is a true story. The tagline of this film is, "A redemption is a journey you can't take alone." Joe is a father who is walking across the country to raise awareness of the dangers of bullying. His son, Jaden, played by Reed Miller, was a high schooler who was gay and very much not accepted for that. And the bullying that came from him being out in school ultimately led to his suicide. No spoiler alerts, this is in the...
No.
You know this is happening. And the film is told through, as Joe is walking across the country, the film is told through flashback memories of moments before Jaden took his life. And then imagined interactions, almost him interacting with Jaden's ghost as he's walking the road. And Jaden is there along with him, traveling the road, having interactions with him, and like, well, this can't be real.
It was a good idea, though, because how else are you supposed to make a story out of a guy just walking? I mean, a movie, I guess. How are you supposed to make a movie out of just Mark Wahlberg? But there was more to that movie than just him walking. You can finish it.
To me, it seemed like he's out there punishing himself under the guise of walking for Jaden, because it's his guilt for not being present for Jaden is very prevalent. He doesn't know how to address his pain, his guilt. So the message that he says he's out there trying to preach about bullying is kind of muted because he doesn't feel like he truly understands what he's trying to say.
Right.
He feels like he should be giving this message, but doesn't know how. And he's a dad who was tough on his boys because he wanted to make them, that's what makes him a man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, so he was kind of ill-equipped to deal with the situation of having a gay son and
Right.
didn't know how to deal with it. And his fight or flight reflex always kicked in when there was an issue regarding Jaden, and his choice was always flight.
Right.
And when Jaden needs someone to be there, to comfort him, to listen to him, to be compassionate, he wasn't there.
No.
And no one was there. You see when Jaden turns to people
They're
in
not
his hardest moments and begs for help, that he's rebuked and almost blamed for the abuse that's been heaped on
Right.
him, and what that ultimately leads to it. And it's just, it's hard because he couldn't find acceptance anywhere, in his school, in his home, anywhere. And it's heartbreaking. And it just really, he went through hell, and like so many other people do. And he, just being unable to be himself. And it's a tough message, and it's a tough story.
A lot of that movie, for a majority of it, I had that like tense feeling in the back of my throat you get when you're just on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
Just trying to hold it back. It is a very emotional movie. It's a beautiful movie too, and you can really feel the emotions that everyone on the screen is trying to portray. They don't hold back, but they don't over-exaggerate it. You can just kind of tell the solemn feeling for most of the movie.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it felt like they walked the line. A couple moments I felt like they were kind of going overboard with trying to draw emotions out of you. But I think it was well told, because you're watching Joe grow through this pain and through this journey, and not just because of his guilt with Jaden, but with the rest of his family, his surviving family, and how he interacts with them.
Because that does play a big part, especially in the latter half of the movie, where his other son and his wife
need him.
They need him, and he's kind of not there, and he'll have outbursts, and he'll just he's not looking in like he should be, and I don't know. There was a turning point in the movie where Jaden stops showing up on his walks, and it does get a little more emotional, and less as a father, and more as like I don't know how I'm trying to word this, but it's tougher for him. It seems it's less cheery, and
I'll say, watching this next to you, there is a lot of fatherly guilt, because as a father, we all make mistakes, and there's a lot of guilt that came with this, and these father and son dynamics that brought a lot of emotion to me.
Yeah,
it was my allergies were acting up in the theater.
I heard sniffles a lot.
And it was rough. And I don't know if you noticed, but I don't know if it was. I assume that it was purposeful, but. At the beginning of the movie, when he and Jaden are walking down the road together, they're always on opposite sides of the road, right?
I noticed that too.
Figure that out. Thought that was pretty cool. I think Mark Wahlberg did great playing a regular guy in this movie, not playing super dad, superhero, anything like that. I thought that worked really well. I was curious if you thought that having Jaden's ghost walk with him worked. It sounds like it did for you.
Oh, for sure. Because otherwise, I don't know how much of a movie, like a compelling story you can tell if every scene that you have of him walking is just him walking. It worked for the scenes following him having the ghost and following the story of, or like the telling of Jaden passing away.
How he got there,
because you have more turmoil there, because you've just seen something big happen in their life, and now he's alone.
And I appreciate that they didn't try to make his character the most likable guy.
Oh, God, no.
He was kind of despicable in moments. He was not,
especially in the flashbacks, and in the one scene.
The great guy.
No,
it felt like an honest portrayal of this person. So, what did you end up giving Joe Bell?
I give it a 3.5. I wish I'd given him more. I sent these in
you got
preemptively because I really like the movie. This will be a movie I'll show friends at some point. I liked it.
I agree. I gave it a 3.5 as well. It's a very strong 3.5. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
It's a movie that I recommend. I absolutely recommend. And it's a smaller film, especially in this big blockbuster season, but it's worth your time. So go check out Joe Bell. All right, sir, we have a couple of minutes to talk about our movie throwback. This week you chose a film. What are we talking about?
I'm going to go very quickly with this one because we're running out of time. It's second Indiana Jones. This one is The Temple of Doom. I have only been doing sequels to the
1984 classic.
80 movies. So this one follows Indiana Jones. He's in Shanghai off of the Trail of Fortune and Glory. He is thrown into a dangerous adventure in India. He's followed by Short Round and Willie Scott, on the search for the magical Sankara stone.
He wants all three of them.
But there, as you can see here, there are just plenty of different, just weird things that come up. Weird people, weird meals, weird rooms.
This took a big step up in the scary, weird stuff from Raiders.
Raiders, it felt like a more
classic adventure movie.
Yeah, it was just an adventure movie. But this one, you're not really, for most of the movie, you're not climbing through jungles and going through tombs and stuff like that.
You're dealing with
you're dealing with
becomes a bad guy. He slaps Short Round.
He's pulling hearts, and not Indy, but pulling hearts out of people and eating them, drinking blood, feeding people blood. It is
scary stuff, man.
This is my favorite of the series.
This was the movie, famously, that led to the
PG-13 rating, because this was a PG movie prior, right?
No, this was this the first PG-13 movie? No,
I'm pretty sure one of the indie movies is first PG-13.
This was the first PG-13
Okay.
movie. This was also the first time I ever saw a prequel when this movie came out, and I saw that it was set before Raiders Lost Ark.
Is it actually?
Yes.
Oh.
It very much confused me. Like, wait a minute, this takes place years before.
Yeah.
Well, this is very strange to me. I don't know if I care for. As a kid, I was like, I don't know if I like prequels. I now know I don't like prequels.
Yeah. I mean, except for this one. This is a good one. Right?
Also,
right?
This was a movie that when I went and saw it in 1984 as a 7-year-old boy, my grandma pulled me out of the theater when a heart got ripped out of a chest. She said, no. We were going across the hall. We were watching Bambi.
There you go.
And I said, what?
Much more suitable for a young...
No. It's a good movie. It's a movie, actually, that I have grown to appreciate more and more over the years. For the longest time, it was my least favorite of the Indiana Jones franchise. Well, Crystal Skull came out, took care of that.
Yeah.
And then the fifth one that's coming out soon will probably really take care of that. But I've grown to appreciate it much more and put it more on par with 1 and 3. Trilogy, where I used to think that it was a drop-off, between 1 and 3, that 2 was a dip. I don't think so anymore. I really appreciate this movie.
I mean, knowing you always said the third one was your favorite, at least when I was the Raiders?
Raiders is the best.
I keep hitting the mic. No, this one was my favorite until Crystal Skull came out.
But I was
I was like, what, 7 when that movie came out? And I loved it.
It was your Indiana Jones one.
But I had seen it one time, and then I watched it like 2 years ago and was like, oh, so it was just nostalgia holding on to this.
Absolutely.
But no, this is for sure my favorite one. I love it.
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom.
From the greatest year in film, 1984.
Yes.
Let's take a look ahead, sir. What is coming out later this month, though, and what perhaps this won't be the best year in film. Coming soon, the weekend of August 12th, we have 3 films. The first one is the soft reboot. The Suicide Squad is back with some of the same cast, some of the not same cast. Who knows?
Like 3 people returning.
Who can be bothered to care?
New story.
But it will be in theaters and on HBO. We also have a film called Vivo, a Netflix Sony animated musical adventure featuring original songs from Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Great.
And we have a documentary called Val, which is on Prime. Is an all-access documentary following the life of the talented and often difficult star Val Kilmer, who has been out of the public eye for a while.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of interesting. So before we move any further, we want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring this program and all the programs previous to this. We do appreciate that. Next week, I am going to be talking about films such as Disney's Jungle Cruise, Stillwater, A24's The Green Knight, and we're going to be throwing back to a film that I absolutely adore, The African Queen, great Humphrey Bogart film, because I'm going to be joined once again by my special guest, intrepid filmmaker Jason Spencer will be along with me to discuss all of these films and who knows what else. But that's all going to be fun. But, sir, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
I always enjoy having you with.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully we do this one more time before you head off to school.
Let's hope.
We'll see. But until next week, I'm Jamison.
I'm Logan. We're doing that. We're still doing that. Okay.
Thanks for watching.